Afternoon was progressing into evening at the apartment complex when a knock came at my door. That's odd. I wasn't expecting anyone. Pressing my face against the door, I peered outside through the peephole. There was absolutely nobody out there. Nothing but the wind blowing a small piece of trash on the sidewalk. Telling myself that maybe I was just hearing things did me little good. I knew what I heard. Maybe it was just one of the neighbors doing something that caused a bang on the other side of the wall, and I mistook it for a knock on the door. Yeah, maybe, I thought. But deep down, I knew that didn't feel right. In any case, nobody was there, so I sat back down on the couch and unpaused the episode of the show I was watching. Ever since the pandemic lockdown shut everything a couple of years ago, my entire lifestyle had changed drastically. I stayed indoors at first out of necessity, but then as the restrictions began to ease and things started to open up and resemble something akin to normalcy, I stayed indoors out of habit. My life was binge-watching and streaming whatever shows were being pumped out, like slop into a pig trough. After some time had passed, the sun was falling closer towards the horizon outside when another knock came at my door. I heard it this time. I know I did. Unmistakable. A knock at my door. Plain as day. I jumped up and rushed across the room to peep out the little peephole on my door. There was somebody there this time. It was a pizza delivery guy, toting one of those insulated bags they use to keep the pies hot and fresh. I recognized the chain on his hat as being from one of the local ones. I'd eaten there often. Well, not there. That would imply that I ever leave my apartment. I don't leave the apartment. I meant I had eaten from there, ordering delivery that was probably more often than I feel comfortable admitting. Despite that fact, I hadn't ordered any pizza. Not today. "You got the wrong place, bud," I yelled through the door, still watching him through the peephole. He looked confused, like he either couldn't understand me or hadn't heard what I'd said. My hands went for the doorknob on instinct, but I caught it at the last second. Something wasn't right. I ordered from this place pretty often, but I'd never seen this guy. It was always the same 3 people that delivered, and he wasn't one of them. He looked plain enough, maybe too plain, too generic. "I didn't order a pizza! Go away!" I yelled slowly, enunciating every syllable so my words couldn't be misunderstood. It seemed that he heard me that time, looking down at the receipt taped to the side of the bag. Realization crossed his face as he realized he had the wrong apartment. Everything about it, from the realization to the pantomime of him smacking the side of his head to emphasize it, seemed forced. As soon as he walked away and out of sight, I slowly turned the deadbolt on my door and locked it. I just had a bad feeling. That feeling told me not to trust that guy. As I went back to my couch and unpaused my show, I couldn't shake that funny feeling. I tried to recall what exactly it was about that guy that seemed so shady. Yeah, that's the word. Shady. I had to go back a few minutes on my show because whenever I got out of my thoughts and started paying attention to what was happening on TV, I realized I'd missed some plot points. Important plot points. The sun outside was coloring the horizon with brilliant colors and hues when yet another knock came on my door. Slightly irritated, because the episode was just getting good, and I was interrupted yet again, I paused it and went to the door. I looked through the peephole and saw that this time it was a couple of little girls. Their tan uniforms and bright red scarves with the numerous little badges dotted on them told me they were Girl Scouts. One of them had a little wagon in tow, overflowing with boxes of cookies, no doubt. As I stood there, debating on whether or not to answer, that familiar fear came creeping up my spine again. During this whole pandemic thing, I'll admit that I may have developed some new phobias. They came natural given the situation, and joined the club of my already existing and ever-growing phobias and fears. Coronaphobia, it's been termed, and it quickly became one of my biggest new fears. It's not just the fear of contracting the virus, but everything associated with it. Public places, social situations, objects, and the biggest of them all, contact with people. Like a germaphobe licking a doorknob, that chill running down my spine sent shivers throughout my nervous system as I shuddered. I physically jumped when the little girl knocked again. I had made up my mind right then and there. I'd just stay quiet, and they'd go away. They'll move on if I just leave it be. I looked through the peephole again to see them backing up their little red wagon and walking away, watching them like a hawk. As I was scanning them and noticing how generic they looked, the one pulling the wagon said, "You can't stay in there forever," as they disappeared around the corner and out of sight. What the hell did that mean? Why did they say that? Were they referring to me? I tried to brush it off. They were just kids after all. Or were they? All day long, strangers had been knocking, every single one of them trying to get me to open my door. Why? What was their plan? They all looked so shady or generic, like if you had an AI produce an image of a pizza guy or a couple of Girl Scouts. Nothing about them stood out at all, and yet because of that, everything about them stood out. Stock images, knocking at my door. I tried to calm down, and a cup of coffee helped. There was no conspiracy, and if there was, what was it? No. Every instance had a perfectly good explanation. The first knock, probably just some kid playing ding-dong ditch. The second, it was a new delivery guy that had misread the apartment number on the ticket. The third one, innocent little Girl Scouts selling cookies to raise money for some annual trip or something. All obviously perfectly good examples. I've got to stop reading so much into these mundane occurrences. I mean, that's what my psychologist says, that I have a tendency to run with my delusions, whatever that means. Now that I think about it, though, Dr. Johnson looks pretty generic too, and that name, Johnson, most generic of all names. I don't think I'll be contacting him on Zoom anymore. Those pills he prescribed me didn't even work. I mean, they kind of worked, but only because they made me feel so sluggish and sleepy. It's hard to be delusional when you feel like a zombie all day. Sunlight was fading and dusk was fast approaching when a knock came at my door. I lifted the remote to pause the show, but it was already paused. Had I forgot to hit the play button after those little girls wearing the scout uniforms tried to trick me into opening the door? This time, with my eyeball glued to the peephole, I saw a young man wearing a nice white shirt, fancy black slacks, and a bicycle helmet standing serendipitously at my front door. There was a bike parked on the sidewalk behind him. The smile on his face was polite and non-threatening. That was the only reason why I didn't yell at him to go away from the start. That and because he didn't look so generic. He had too many freckles and acne that kind of made him stand out. "Yeah?" I asked loud enough through the door. "Hello, sir. I was wondering if I could have a moment of your time," he asked, respect and politeness oozing from his voice. "What do you want?" I yelled, after taking a moment to build up my courage. "What do you people want?" What I hoped would be a rhetorical and needless question, not necessarily at the young man, but at the outside world in general, at whatever had been outside trying to lure me out. The young man's smile faded for an instant, as if he had experienced something akin to my reaction countless times before. As quickly as it faded, though, it reappeared and was reinforced. "I want what any decent and God-loving person wants, sir. I want to do my part to save as many souls as possible. I promise, sir, just a quick moment of your time." I wanted to trust the kid from the moment I saw him. He wasn't generic. He didn't look generic, like the others. What if he was telling the truth, and there really was something out there? What if something that wanted to lure me outside and take my soul was lurking somewhere out there, and he wanted to save people from it, wanted to save me from it? He didn't look generic, not like the others. I was torn. What if some shred of logic fought with the rest of my paranoid, fear-addled brain? I won't come outside. You'll have to come inside to me. But if I let you inside, you have to promise me you're not generic, and that you'll tell me everything you know about this thing. Can you do that for me? I shouted. The young man agreed with a curt, "Yes, sir." Before I unlatched the door, I quickly ran into the kitchen and grabbed a large butcher's knife, the biggest one I had. Concealing it behind my back, I unlocked the door with a shaky hand and slowly, in small degrees, opened the door. I winced as the fading light of dusk illuminated my cave-like apartment. I was expecting, I don't know, something. I was ready for anything as soon as I opened that door, but when no boogeyman came rushing towards me, I knew I'd made the right decision in trusting this kid. He really was trying to help me, and those generic things out there knew it. Maybe they were afraid of him. Yeah, they had to be. If that was the truth, that meant that he had the answers that I needed if I was going to avoid, or God forbid, fight off whatever was trying to trick me into coming outside. I motioned for the young man to quickly step inside, peering around the corner and into the outside world for something generic waiting to pounce. As soon as he was inside, I quickly shut the door behind him and hastily engaged the deadbolt. Okay, I think we're safe. Now tell me, what do you know about it? I asked, trying to remain calm and on the brink of failing. Well, sir, we believe in very similar things. Things that most people believe, but there are some things that we feel that they have got wrong. He had my full attention, and I loosed my white-knuckle grip on the knife behind my back. Yeah? Go on. Well, sir, most others believe that he is the Trinity. Our belief diverges there slightly. We believe that he is the one, and that dividing his being into three is just wrong, that it takes away from his grandeur, the young man said, matter-of-factly. Are you sure about that, kiddo? So far I've counted 3 of them out there. Was it possible that this kid didn't know as much about the situation as I thought he did? How sure are you about this? Are you willing to gamble your life on it? We don't believe in gambling, sir, but yes, I trust my eternal soul on this information. He sounded so sure. I thought it might be cocky of him, but cocky was good. That means he had confidence. Confidence is something that you want in someone who wants to save your soul. Also, sir, I know that most people believe that he was resurrected. We differ in that belief. While we can agree that he died for our sins, we believe that the resurrection was more spiritual in nature. What kind of creatures are we dealing with out there? I thought, if this man was to be believed, then it could shapeshift. There weren't 3 of them like I'd counted, but a single entity. Plus, it not only fed on souls, but was dying to get at our sins, whatever the hell that meant. I mean, of course it wanted our souls, the thing that died and lost its own, only to be resurrected as a soulless, generic husk. No, this was worse than I thought. Well, this was terrible news. It felt good to have my paranoia validated for once. So, how do we beat this generic devil? I asked, staring intently into his eyes. By God, this kid was cocky. For me to ask a question like that, and his reaction to be a smile. He was the real deal. With prayer, sir. All things are possible through prayer, was his answer. So caught up I had been, mulling over this revelation. My grip on the knife behind my back must have momentarily eased. As the knife slipped between my fingers, it fell and stuck into my wooden floor. The young man saw this. As his eyes glared at the erect blade protruding upward from the floor, that smile that had beamed at me turned into a mouth agape. He stared at it, then at me, then at the knife again. His previously friendly eyes were now wide with terror. I glanced down at the knife, giving it a dismissive wave of my hand. Don't worry about that. I need you to teach me the prayer. We gotta kill this thing for good. It happened Suddenly then, before I knew what was happening, his foot struck my crotch. Struck it hard. As I lay on the floor, writhing in pain, fighting off waves of nausea, the young man was fumbling with the lock on my door. "Why?" was all I could scream as he unlatched and ran out into the twilight. It was all so obvious now that I think about it. He wasn't really sent here to save me. No. He was working for that generic beast. He was its lapdog, its pet, sent here to taunt me, feed me false information, and probably worst of all, to give me hope. I crawled to the still open door and slammed it shut, straining upward to rearrange the locks. After a couple of minutes, the pain receded enough for me to stand. That leads up to where I am now. Since that demon tricked me by sending its lackey, I've been pacing around, typing this story on my phone. There's been a big commotion outside. I barricaded my door and windows using furniture. Strange creatures are swarming outside, not even bothering to shapeshift into generic forms anymore. I'll admit, for a time, I thought that I may have just made it all up. Maybe just ran with my delusions like the psychiatrist said. That moment of supposed clarity was shattered when I climbed up on my couch, barring the door, and peeked outside through the peephole. That's when I saw them. I can see their true forms. Dead, soulless eyes staring back at me, above mandibles with pincers protruding from their mouths. They bark my own language back at me, which means they've been here long enough to know our tongue. It's unnaturally loud when they speak, and they make their demands from the steps outside. I won't, though. I won't let them devour my soul. I know what to do. I still have the knife, and once I send this, I'll do it. Night falls outside, and there are many, many knocks on my door. Loud knocks. They've got some sort of device. They're wielding it and attempting to bash in the door. If you get a knock and look out the peephole, if the people are strange and look too generic, don't open your door. Good evening, everyone. It's me, Dr. Plague. Thank you so much for joining me for tonight's story. If you think you might be able to handle just one more creepy tale, go ahead and click on one of the stories you can doubtlessly see appearing at the end of this one. If you're not subscribed, go ahead and hit that subscribe button too. Maybe hit that bell so you don't miss any of the spooky things that we do here. If, like so many of my patrons, you decide you'd like to get your spooky a little bit earlier, why not come on down to Patreon and have a look at some of the great tiers that I have. My $5 tiers get their spooky a little early, and they have their name read out at the end of every TikTok and every YouTube video that I make. If you'd like a copy of my latest book, there's a link below to my Amazon profile. I've got mini books. I'm sure you'll find one that'll suit you there. I always recommend Stragview Stories, as it's the one I'm the most proud of. It contains a large collection of prison horror stories out of Stragview, the prison that I've made in the Georgia Hills. So, if you'd like to have a look, come on down. Before we go, let's go ahead and thank our patrons. Thanks to Janet for being our Spooky Skeleton tier contributor, and thanks to Winter, Xaronan, Emily Coltsfoot, Stephanie Carrington, Marianne Schuler, Tyler Parker, and Jennifer Damron for being my Ghostly Reader tier contributors. Thanks, everyone. We just couldn't do the show without you. And as always, thanks for stopping by. Dr. Plague, signing off. Have a wonderful evening.